Hi, today I'm going to talk about how to use mosaic tiles to make a coaster. It's a very simple little project, but it's fun to make. Now, I have a video out already on how I foiled these little mosaic tiles, and I have another video on how I cut the diagonals in different ways you can cut the diagonals if you want to have just triangles instead of the squares. As usual, in the description, I will have a list of the materials that I used, and I am an Amazon affiliate, so I do make a little bit if you end up clicking on my website. But anyways, okay, for this project, I'm using 2 centimeter squares. Now, these are little tiles you can buy. A lot of places sell them. They come in various sizes, usually 1.5, or 2, but these are 2s I'm using. I'm also using 7/32 inch black backed foil that I have cut in half. This is because I didn't want the foil to overlap the sides of my tiles a lot, because when I'm done, that would end up making a very wide line between the glass, and the glass would be, you know, cut in a lot on the side. So here we have our foil, and I am cutting the 7/32 inch foil in half. So you just sit there with scissors, and you don't have to have really fancy scissors or anything. It's quite easy to just cut them in half. So now I take my pieces of foil that I have now cut in half, and I use them to go around my tiles. Now, I do have a video that's only on foiling tiles, so you can watch that if you want to, which explains a little bit better than this video. So these are my 2 centimeter little squares that I'm using, and I'm wrapping them around. Now, this thin foil doesn't really wrap around as much as just stick to the edges, but the edges of these particular tiles are, they're not smooth. They have lots of grooves in them. So actually there's quite a lot of sticking surface for it to adhere to. So I'm not going to have a problem with that. Now remember that tiles do come in different shapes. You can buy triangles. They're more like isometrical triangles, whereas I wanted a right angle triangle, which is why I cut these in half for my kind of quilt design that I wanted to use in this project. But yes, tiles do come in rectangles and circles and squares, different shapes. So you might be able to just find what you want for your project and not have to cut any. But either way, if you want to make a stained glass type project, you're going to want to foil them so that you can solder them all together. And as I said, I do have a video on this if you want to look at it. I don't want to use the full width of the foil because then it would wrap around too much. And as you see, it already wraps around. There's such little squares that you really don't want to have a lot of surface covered up by your foil. And of course, you have to burnish them down. You want to press this stuff down because that sticky edge is really needed. And I cut a bunch of tiles in half, and I have a video on that of how I went about trying to figure out what's the best way to cut them in half. And yeah, maybe you have a better way of cutting them in half, but I basically stuck with this using these wheeled tile cutters. I used some of those, but as you can see, it's still not a perfect look. Since I already had them all foiled, I ended up having to either pull them apart and refoil them, or sometimes I cut the foil with a mat knife to try to get rid of where I've already foiled it. And I tried some where I used a wheeled glass, a glass cutter and running pliers, which did cut them in half, but it wasn't a perfect cut either. So I kind of went back and forth on those two. But the video that I have that I put out shows different ways that you can achieve a cut tile. Using my silicone frame system to hold the tiles, I now put all the tiles together in the configuration that I wanted. And I added my favorite flux, which is a gel flux. And I like the gel flux because it's not really watery like just the liquid flux is. And as you see, I've already tacked some of the areas together, and now I am running a solder joint along all the seams that are already like near a tacked seam, and then there will be places that I haven't tacked at all, so I'll have to like add a little glob of solder for those before I do the whole seam, just to kind of hold it in place. Now, because I have the silicone around the edge, the framing system that I did, I can put solder right along all the edges because it's not going to like stick to anything. So that's handy, and I'll show you how I finish it off in a couple minutes. So the solder is adhering to the foil that's right on the edges of the tiles. You don't see a lot of foil, you don't see a lot of solder on the top that much because, as you know, I didn't wrap the foil around the tiles. So basically what I'm doing is I'm kind of filling the gap between the tiles, and that's where the foil is. After you have finished the squares themselves, I then went around the edges to make sure that that was secure, and then turned it over. And I am using pretty much the globs that fell through from the first side, and just kind of remelting them and smoothing them out. Now, usually you have to turn the project over a few times to get both sides to look pretty decent. Now, these particular tiles had kind of grooves on one side, so you also have to decide, well, what is the actual top and what is the bottom, the underside, because both sides are unique. And when I placed the tiles themselves in this configuration, I kind of alternated the stripes. So as you see, they go one direction, then they go the other direction. I mean, you can do whatever you want to. These just happen to have little striped grooves in them, so I wanted to alternate them. So here I turned it over, and then I'm just making sure that I don't have any big globs of solder on the top side. And of course, you can work on your solder seams even more than I am and make them quite smooth and intricate if you'd like to. I use a 14 and an 18 gauge pre-tinned copper wire for the next step. Now, you don't have to use the pre-tinned wire. I did that just so I didn't have to worry about missing areas for this step. This is for the wire that's going around to kind of smooth out the outsides. I stuck them both in the end of a screw gun, and then I twisted the screw gun until till it coiled up nicely. I wrapped it around and bent it so it was the right shape, tacked it down onto my project, and then tacked it in places, and you can see there's still places that need to be soldered, And so I am now filling the areas that had the push pins holding it down. As I said in some of my other videos, I use stainless steel push pins, so if any flux or moisture gets on the push pins, they don't start rusting. Because I did have my first bunch of push pins got all icky and rusty, and I didn't really want to deal with that anymore. So the stainless steel ones, the point of it is actually stainless steel, so it won't rust. And then I also have push pins where I put silicone around the top so that I can take them on and off my projects without my hands getting too hot, because yeah, they will get hot if you get your iron too close to them. They do heat up because yeah, they're metal. I wouldn't want to use plastic push pins. That would not be a very good idea. So I'm going around again and smoothing it out. I didn't want to have really thick three-dimensional seams on this because it is a coaster, and I wanted it to be pretty flat so that any glass or mug you actually use on the coaster wouldn't like tilt or something, or get caught on the solder joints. So I did try to make them relatively as flat as I could. And of course, because as you saw, my cutting of these tiles wasn't absolutely perfect. There are bigger gaps sometimes between some, more so than others. And there is a video, as I might have mentioned earlier, on how I went about cutting the tiles. I washed this with soap and water and scrubbed it on both sides, and then I decided to finish it with a copper patina. The copper color is similar to the gold stripes that are in the tiles, so I thought that would look nice. So for this project, I just put some in the top cup of the patina and just kind of rubbed it on with a Q-tip. Sometimes I do spray my patina on. I like to do that more if I can do it outside because patina is really hazardous. So I don't really like to spray in the house. So since it's winter, I didn't really want to do that anyway. So and this is a very small project, so I'm just rubbing it on with a Q-tip, and it works fine this way. It's just if you have a project that has a lot of thin wires all over it, then like my dream catchers, then it's just a little bit harder to get it completely done, to patina with just a paintbrush or a Q-tip, because there's just so many places to do. And it's really pretty, so it's all turning that coppery color, which is really fun. And then obviously I needed to turn it over and do the other side. Well, I guess you don't really have to, because, you know, you could decide, oh, well, this is the underneath of my coaster and who's going to pick it up and look at it, so I don't need to do that. So that's really up to you, but I just wanted to do both sides. In most of this video, I am showing to you at what's called 4 times the normal speed. So yeah, if a section takes a minute, it's really a 4-minute, in real time. But that would be like really boring to watch, so I didn't want to do it that slow. So yeah, I'm picking up my project and tilting it and getting all the areas covered. When I was done, I washed this very well and then put on little round rubbery stops on the bottom to hold it off the table when you use it. And this is the project when it's done. It was a lot of fun. And since tiles come in different colors, there's such a variety you can do. Thanks for watching. See you next time. Bye.